I know it's only Monday, but Friday, everybody does shots. Colorado opens up vaccines to anyone 16 and older who wants the shot as of the end of the week. Good time now to iron out the wrinkles at our mass vaccination sites, because this weekend was wrinkly. Let's have a difficult conversation about difficult conversations. How Coloradans can speak up if they see something troubling before the next tragedy. And his hands have sculpted beautiful tributes. A tribute to him is made of rock, uncarved, about 200 million miles away. That's next. The way Colorado counted to 2 on vaccine phases sounded a lot like a parent trying to avoid the end result. When I get to 2, everybody gets a vaccine. 1, 1A, 1B1, 1B2, 1B3, 1B4. Well, Colorado is going to say 2 on Friday, an open season for vaccines for everybody. It's going to be a mad rush. The state says it's going to take time. They think that anybody who wants a vaccine should have it by mid to late May. This is a sped-up schedule as more counties move to the low restriction level green, and the statewide mask mandate set to expire on Saturday. Governor spoke today of a shift to more local control over the rules.
We believe that in mid-April, we are more formally devolving the authority of the local area. Really, the only types of events that will remain under state guidance will be large-scale events, thousands of people together. Doesn't mean they can't occur. It just means that there need to be thoughtful health guidelines like there are for the Rockies at Coors Field, like there are for other major events. Otherwise, that'll be returning local. And so what that means is we're likely to have about a 2-week extension of that mask order to get us to that point.
Governor did say today that he thinks the mask mandate in schools is likely going to continue through the rest of the year. So as we prepare to open vaccines to the general public, the hospital system that's running 2 big mass vaccination sites is reviewing a pretty rough weekend. People waited in line for 3 hours at Dick's Sporting Goods Park for a vaccine. Down at the Broadmoor World Arena, they ran out of shots and had to turn away people who had appointments. Our Steve Steger asked Centura Health how it's learning from those mistakes.
The goal with those sites is in and out within 30 minutes.
Talk to anyone who got the shot at Dick's Sporting Goods Park during the week last week. They will tell you everything was smooth. Just don't mention that to someone who was there on Sunday.
We did have some operational challenges, and there were unexpected wait times for people that showed up.
Unexpected wait times equaled 3 hours in some cases. We heard about people cutting lines, others getting out of the car and yelling. A mess, Centura says, that was created by an IT glitch.
There was a scheduling error that enabled about 400 extra Coloradans to schedule an appointment for a vaccine yesterday. And because of those extra individuals, we were not staffed appropriately.
2,400 appointments were on the schedule yesterday when they planned for just 2,000. A glitch that's since been fixed, according to Dr. Shauna Gully, the chief clinical officer for Centura.
In partnership with the state, Centura Health brought over additional vaccines to meet the needs of every single person who is scheduled for a vaccine.
Everyone got the shot there. Not the case down south. At Centura's Mass Vac site in the Springs, Broadmoor World Arena, they ran out of vaccine before the end of the day. Why? Because they gave out too many shots to people who showed up without appointments.
We always plan to have some additional vaccines on hand for people who show up, along with individuals who have appointments or who walk up to the site. And there was a circumstance where additional individuals got vaccinated that were not planned for.
All the people who had appointments and didn't get the shot were rescheduled. And Centura is rethinking how it does business moving forward.
Additional procedures have been put in place so that never happens again.
What kind of additional procedures, you might ask? Well, they are going to check in on their supply of vaccine hour by hour throughout the course of these events to make sure that they have enough supply for appointments by the end of the day. So I asked the governor today, does this shake his confidence as we get set to open up the vaccine schedule to everyone on Friday? He told me that in the early days of these clinics, there tend to be glitches like this, problems, they get sorted out. Centura, for its part, said this whole process has been a learning process for them. They learn something new every day that makes the process better down the road.
Yeah, it's a human endeavor, Steve. I think people are willing to give a lot of grace to all the healthcare workers who are trying to put this together. No grace for the machines, though. Whatever computer created that glitch and gave out 400 extra appointments, that computer has to go back to work into the DMV.
Yeah, that, or we're going to go Office Space on it in the middle of a field with some baseball bats at some point. I think that computer needs to be done away with.
Forgive the humans, never forgive the computers. Thank you, Steve. We should pass more than 1 million Coloradans this week completing the vaccination process. We're that close. 969,000 people so far have gone through the process, almost 17% of the state population. 638,000 people are waiting on their second shot of Pfizer or Moderna. Our hospital numbers are still just kind of stuck. 324 patients currently hospitalized, up 1 patient from the day before, and right about where we were this time last week when 329 COVID patients were being treated in our hospitals. We saw a big one-day swing up in positivity yesterday, up to 6.8%. Our 7-day average is hovering just above 4%, which is acceptable. Public health experts would like to see it under 5%, which suggests the spread in the community is not out of control. This week, we're going to continue to remember the lives lost at the Boulder King Supers and learn more about what happened in that shooting and how we might prevent similar instances. That involves an uncomfortable discussion. When you see somebody doing something concerning, how do you say something? What does it mean to say something? And who are you supposed to say it to? Here's Marshall Zellinger.
When another fence goes up and new memorials grow, there always seems to be the question, could it have been prevented? Why didn't someone know better and do something? But what does that mean? What exactly are you supposed to do?
We have the systems. Call the crisis hotline. If there's a weapon involved, call 911.
Could you call 911 on your loved one? Even before it came to that, could you voice your concern directly to them?
We must get ahead of the breakdown. And to get ahead of the breakdown is, having a serious conversation when things are calm and say, I'm talking to you because I love you and I want you to know that I'm very concerned about some behaviors that I saw that don't seem to reflect who you are.
And it's usually those people closest to that individual that might see those warning signs, and they have to have a safe way of reporting it.
Susan Payne is the founder of Safe to Tell, the anonymous student tip line that was created following Columbine. In a non-COVID year, Safe to Tell gets about 20,000 calls about suicide, bullying, and school threats. A way to make anonymous tips about someone you're concerned about. So when we ask, why didn't someone say something? Is it because we don't have the same tool as students?
What we did with Safe to Tell was to focus on an early interruption and early intervention so that we could prevent tragedies before they happen. And it's worked very successfully in schools.
I would have to take a long look at whether or not it is feasible and what it would take to make it work.
Democratic Attorney General Phil Weiser, whose office operates Safe to Tell, focused on the tools the state does have, the Colorado Crisis Hotline, and the recently enacted red flag law. If you call 911 or go straight to court, you can ask a judge to temporarily take weapons from someone who is a threat to themselves or others. So before another fence goes up, before additional memorials are needed, if you see something, how do you say something?
Guns raise a red flag, thus the red flag law. And a lot of times people who are experiencing mental illness, we might be worried, how do we have that conversation? That is an area that we as a society have to get better at.
You heard the crisis line mentioned multiple times in that story, so let's start with Colorado Crisis Services, the number you see on the screen, 1-844-493-8255. You can also text the word TALK to 38255. Now, Kyle, when it comes to calling on someone, the story made me think of Crime Stoppers. That's an anonymous place to call, but Crime Stoppers traditionally is where you call for tips to solve something that has happened, not a place that you go to preemptively say, I think this might happen. So perhaps it might be, if not Crime Stoppers, perhaps an adult Safe to Tell.
Some other options for people other than simply the escalation to I'm going to call armed law enforcement into my home to deal with what may be a mental health crisis that they are or are not prepared to handle.
I think about this, if you have tried to have a conversation with a family member about just regular behavior, like maybe, hey, you said that the wrong way to mom or dad, like that's an uncomfortable conversation. That doesn't even require calling 911 at all. So that thought process of, I'm actually going to call law enforcement on someone that I can't have this other simple conversation with, that there are these other avenues that people need to get in their head. Like, okay, I don't necessarily need to call 911. There's that crisis hotline I can call.
Yeah, levels of safer escalation. Thank you, Marshall. Family and close friends celebrated the life and the faith Boulder Police Officer Eric Talley today, one day ahead of a more public funeral that's scheduled for tomorrow. The Latin funeral mass for the fallen officer was held today at the Cathedral Basilica of the Immaculate Conception in Denver. Officer Talley was one of the 10 people killed at the grocery store in Boulder a week ago today. He was one of the first officers to respond to the scene. Boulder police say that Officer Talley's actions saved many lives that day. Officer Talley's Catholic faith was a defining element of his life. The public is invited to a larger funeral, 11 a.m. tomorrow at the Flatirons Community Church in Lafayette, and we'll also stream that service live. A word of thanks from me to you tonight for the overwhelming support and generosity that you have shown the Boulder community since last week. The Boulder County Crisis Fund was set up to meet both long-term and short-term needs of the victims' families, and then after that, the wider community. 9 News viewers donated $288,000 through your Word of Thanks micro-giving campaign. That is a whole lot of small contributions from all across the state that will add up to lasting good and support for grieving families and that hurting community. Your Word of Thanks campaigns have now raised nearly $3.5 million since last summer. And we will get started on the next micro-giving campaign on Wednesday. I hope that you'll find it just as meaningful and as impactful for our neighbors. There's no such thing as an unbiased person. People have biases, so Colorado's Independent Redistricting Commission is going to have its biases. It's chock full of people. But did it really need a conspiracy theorist? Name a flying piece of rock, asteroid 92579, and people might not remember. Name it after a pioneering Coloradan, and we can have a conversation, like the one we'll have next. Every 10 years, political district lines get redrawn based on population. Now, it used to be legislators, Democrats and Republicans, who decide on those new boundaries. Colorado voters decided to put independent commissions in charge of the process, take the politics out. So we've been telling you about the people picked for this important work. Danny Moore is an election rigging conspiracy theorist and now the chair of the 12-person commission that will redraw the state's congressional districts. On social media in January, Moore wrote, "The election of 2020 will go down as the most questioned election in our country's history." He wrote, quote, "Mass mail-in ballots can be controlled by the people you give them to." And, quote, "Once you hand them over, you lose any voice you thought you had." We asked Moore, who's Republican, whether someone who has spread unverified claims of election fraud should be leading an independent redistricting commission.
The thing that we value most is our First Amendment right to have an opinion. My opinion is of no greater or lesser value to anyone else's opinion. It's meant to put out there so that people can have a conversation around the elections, conversation around our First Amendment rights. So yes, I should be the person that you want in charge of this chair to question the fairness of our elections, question the fairness of our approach to this. And so I think I am more than qualified, and any statement that I've made does not disqualify me.
Moore is on that 12-person commission because he applied, and he was randomly picked in a bingo ball-like drawing. Moore said that his fellow commissioners picked him to be the chairperson.
Sunny, windy, and warm today. Afternoon highs way above average in the 70s and 80s. It all comes to an end tonight with the arrival of a cold front that will bring overnight snow. A couple inches of snow possible by the time you wake up tomorrow and head out, but colder air will be the rule. Temperatures tomorrow will be in the 30s. Snow cuts off from north to south mid-morning. We'll get some clearing in the afternoon, but kind of a chilly, unsettled Tuesday coming up. Not a lot of accumulation, but an inch or two of snow certainly possible. In Denver tonight, increasing clouds, a decreasing wind, our low 23. Tomorrow, our high only 39 with afternoon clearing. The snow ends by lunchtime. And then we have a nice warming trend heading into the weekend. We say hello to April with highs in the 70s.
We do more, we do better when everybody is respected and included.
His bravery, on a couple of levels, made American history.
Half the Senate and half the House were dead set against
a new tribute to his talents and perseverance is a mere 201 million miles away from his home in Colorado. That's next. Out beyond Mars, before you get to Jupiter, there is a space rock, perhaps a mile wide, racing through space carrying, unknown to said rock, the name of a space pioneer in Colorado. Asteroid 92579 Dwight. Named this year for Ed Dwight Jr., the first African-American astronaut trainee in the early 1960s. Dwight has been just as accomplished in his second career as a sculptor and author in Denver.
This latest batch of names that we came up with for asteroids,
mine's the first one on the list,
I think recognizes the diversity of the astronaut corps.
Each one of these is named after a black astronaut or a minority astronaut. My name is Ed Dwight. I was the first African-American astronaut candidate back in the 60s, and I guess I'm known today as being one of the foremost African-American sculptors. I got the letter November the 4th, 1961, asking me if I wanted to be an astronaut. So Kennedy had been in office a year or so. I was the kind of a guinea pig in a way, because that half the country, half the Senate, and half the House were dead set against it. And so the president had to do things to protect me. And I was well protected until the president got killed. And I was right in the middle of the hot seat. And so that's why I chose to resign. I said, let me just get out of here and stop all this madness, because it wasn't going to end well, in my opinion.
We do more and we do better when everybody is respected and included.
You know, the idea of this is a good thing, and maybe it's a great possibility that somebody at some point it gives us some life, it gives us some legs, and let people know that there were black scientists and black astronauts, and that we got our name. We have a little name tag on an asteroid out there.
The story of Ed Dwight and his asteroid. He was the astronaut trainee, through the lens of our photojournalist, Corky Scholl. Is there holdout snow at your place or somewhere on your walk? You know, shady spot that just won't melt despite all the weekend sun? One Coloradan's above and beyond effort to clear it. And your feedback next. The most Colorado thing we saw today is a Coloradan who is working smarter, not harder. Pam saw her husband Paul taking the snowblower to the shady side of their yard in Westminster, tossing snow over to the sunny side where it could melt in the 70s before a bit more snow comes tomorrow. All of it should be long gone and melted by this weekend for Easter egg hunts, and that's it, actually. Pam says the grandkids are coming over this weekend for the egg hunt. Paul did not want to chance it. Finish with your words tonight. Jennifer writes in to say, "Oh, crud, thought I could make it through a day without crying. Thank you for the micro-giving campaign from a heartbroken, lifelong Boulderite. Her thanks is to all of you. $288,000 raised for the Boulder County Crisis Fund." Jennifer, I think folks across Colorado feel for your community, whether or not their particular corner of Colorado has been touched by the tragedy of a mass shooting before. So I think a lot of folks just want to do whatever they could to help. Coming up on Wednesday, we're going to start what I hope will be an equally meaningful effort to help other folks in Colorado who have been touched by violence, perhaps haven't received the same attention. And a note from Sheila says, "Not that I begrudge people getting the shot, but bleep it. Now I'm going to have to compete with them." Sheila, we hope you get your bleeping shot soon.